My name is Chef Jamie Simpson, and welcome to this week's unboxing at the Chef's Garden. We are in mid-swing here, really in the height of summer, and it shows, which is why we thought we might get to a video that kind of highlights the ingredients in these home delivery boxes. We wanted to show specifically and highlight each of these ingredients into a single dish that we call summer succotash. It's a melange of vegetables that can change as needed, and they're just fantastic. So we're going to dice some onions. This is something pretty simple. But it's something that a lot of people, get wrong. And there's really no wrong way to cut an onion, really. But we're going to go for just a simple, uniform, easy cut. We don't even need this whole onion, so we're just going to cut some of it. And this will be the first step in our succotash. If you don't have onion, no worries. Don't go to the store for it. That should be enough. Corn. Pretty straightforward. For us, when we shuck corn, we just split the top in half and then drag the thing down. You can really eat this stuff raw. You don't need to cook it. We're going to cook it, but it's so delicious this time of year. Just a little bit of salt goes a long way to balance the sweetness. Don't throw away your cobs. Honestly, don't throw away your husks either. We work the corn silk into a tea. We take the husk and cob into corn stock. Almost treat it like any other stock. It's great hydration liquid for cooking or making cornbread too, or grits. Summer squash. I have really loved seeing these in the vegetable boxes for home delivery as the seasons have progressed. We're going to dice these really simply. We're also going to cook them with everything else very simply. This is a patty pan squash. I want to keep the vegetables a little bigger than a traditional succotash where everything's diced really small, because we're serving this by itself. And so we want a lot of textural contrast. There's going to be a lot of great contrast in color. French beans or wax beans. We have a mix of wax beans, both green and yellow varieties right now. A few weeks ago, these things were really small. Obviously, they're fully mature now. So for these beans, we want to line up the ends. Now, because these are all different lengths, it kind of takes a little bit of convincing. But we line up the ends, and we're just going to remove those tips. Specifically the tip that's attached to the plant. So this piece right here, it's woody. You can do this by hand, like my grandmother used to do, or you can just line them up and cut them off and be done with it. Just like that. So for these beans, we'll just cut them into small, kind of bite-sized pieces. Not too small. Let's say thirds. The farm, the Chef's Garden, grows over 100 varieties of tomatoes. To name them is not possible unless you're really, really good. But it's a good challenge, and it would be a fun exercise for you at home to try and identify the varieties that will arrive in your box. I know this one's one, Flam. It's beautiful, sweet, low acid, thin skin. It's one of my favorite. We're going to work these into small pieces and incorporate them into the succotash at the very end. Just enough to heat them through, let them soften slightly, but not be mush. We don't need much, but there's a lot of sugar in the vegetables as a whole, and the acid from these tomatoes is just a perfect balance for cooking with summer vegetables. Great, I think that'll do it. You know, there's two types of squash blossoms. There's actually male and female. The sizes vary between variety of squash. You've probably often heard the word squash and zucchini just kind of thrown out intermittently. I can clarify that squash is a larger umbrella to different species of squash, which include even pumpkins, gourds, zucchini, yellow squash, crookneck squash, one ball, patty pan, all these things. They're all squash. We're just going to pull these apart with our hands. They almost segment themselves. And these will also go in at the very end of the succotash. Beurre monté or beurre fondue or whatever you want to call it, it's pretty much the same. We're going to take a tablespoon of water per pound of butter. For me, I try and find the best quality butter I can possibly get for this. It's all about the butter quality here, and unsalted. Okay, you can adjust the seasoning, but if you stick with unsalted, high quality butter, that's a win. So again, it's about a tablespoon of water per pound of butter. We're just going to throw a little bit down there. Looks about right. And once this is warm enough to melt butter, it doesn't have to get too hot. You're going to start mounting one piece at a time. If you ever read a recipe and it says mount butter, mont au beurre, this is what we mean. And you're actually controlling the temperature with the butter. So if we didn't keep adding cool butter, this pot would be too hot and the butter will break. So for cooking, it's important not to add too much oil to the pan in the beginning of this step. We do want a little bit. The reason for that is when the butter sauce finally makes its entrance into this pan, if there's too much oil in here, the butter sauce will be encouraged to break. So we're going to start. We'll start with some onions. They don't take too long to cook. Maybe our next step will be a larger vegetable like the summer squash. What we'll do is squash and beans because they're still raw. We don't want a lot of color here. It's okay to have a little bit, but we really don't want much. We're going to control that with moisture from the vegetables. All right. Starting to warm up. I'll just use a little water. The water will help steam these vegetables and soften them up. Maybe we'll go corn. We're gonna let this cook until the beans are tender. And they're close. Now for those par-cooked navy beans, or any small field pea of sorts, now's a good time to add them. Maybe, traditionally you might see black-eyed peas, Sea Island red peas, any kind of cow pea, calico pea, field pea variety. Something nice and small. Tomatoes. Tomatoes we'll add now. We're just about done. Squash blossoms. To properly add the beurre monté, you want to make sure there's a little bit of moisture already on the bottom of the pan. There is not in this case, so we're going to add some water. I'm just going to use some water from the beans. You can use any water you want. Just some water. Okay, you see it's nice and wet. And it's officially summer. And don't stop here. This is not, the end of dinner. Like I said, if you can take this kind of salad or approach to cooking a vegetable succotash, consider the addition of fish. Beautiful, gently cooked flounder, maybe even, like I said, pork chops. Spoon this over grits or polenta, pasta even. This is very simple, very light, beautiful summer succotash.